Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm going to be talking about my May 2020 priority. If you're not familiar with my monthly priorities, I will link a video about that below. So in the US, May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Also, May is the Asian Readathon hosted by Read with Cindy. I will link her announcement video to that below if you want to check it out, as well as the prompts for the Readathon. So in this video, I want to do a couple of things. I'm going to give a couple of shout outs to Asian American and Pacific Islander booktubers. I'm also going to give some recommendations of books that I've read by Asian American and Pacific Islander authors, and I'm going to give my TBR for the month. So first, I'd like to do a few shout outs, starting with Jade at Bedtime Bookworm. Jade is a Korean-American booktuber and also my cousin. Jade is not only just a wonderful booktuber, but a wonderful person, and she's actually the reason why I got involved in booktube in the first place. A few years ago at Christmas, we were chatting and she told me and Sush about her booktube channel. We checked it out and kind of fell in love with the booktube community, so much so that I decided I wanted to get involved and start a channel. Jade was so supportive and just so kind, watching and commenting on all of my videos to really encourage me and welcome me into the community. So just a wonderful person, but also a wonderful booktuber. I love her channel. Jade is always so thoughtful and so insightful when it comes to reading her books and talking especially about the world building. She reads a ton of fantasy, some sci-fi. She's also recently gotten into horror, which Sush loves because he's a huge fan of horror. I fall down more the epic fantasy side, but it's just always so enjoyable. We love watching her channel, and I also think that it's super cool because this year she is a judge for the BookTube SFF Awards. I'll link information about that below as well. So Jade is very involved in the community, and she does excellent vlogs and reviews and just so much that is wonderful and so great to watch her channel. So if you haven't already checked out Jade, you should definitely check her out, and I will link her down below. Next, I'd like to shout out The Poptimist, who is a Korean-Canadian booktuber that focuses especially on Canadian literature. Especially in the past couple of years, he's gotten very involved in the Canadian literature kind of community, and he reads so many interesting things, does all of these excellent, thoughtful, very analytical reviews, and it really brings so much literature to light that I wouldn't have heard about otherwise. He also has a great sense of humor. His channel, The Poptimist, he uses so much pop culture references and tons of GIFs and images and things like that that just really make his videos fun to watch. I definitely recommend that you check out his channel if you haven't already. He's definitely I think a YouTube favorite, so please do check him out if you haven't already. I'll link his information below. And lastly, I'd like to shout out a channel that I only recently discovered, but I'm very much liking so far, which is Alexa at Alexa Loves Books. Alexa is Filipino-American, and she actually runs this channel kind of together with her husband, which I adore. I really, really, really like couple channels. Alexa reads so widely and reads so much. They do weekly wrap-ups, and every week she has something like 15 books to wrap up. It's crazy. She reads a ton of different things, from fantasy to contemporary, from manga to romance to all sorts of things. She reads really, really widely, and there's a lot of overlap with my taste there. Her husband, Mackie, reads a ton of comics, and it also sounds like he's into middle grade. So basically, I'm just in love with this channel, and I really am enjoying their content so far, so I hope you check them out too. So now I'd like to recommend a couple of books by Asian American authors that I've read in the past year, which I think are such great reads, and I definitely recommend you read them too. First, I'd like to recommend Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chang. Ted Chang is Chinese, Taiwanese American, and he writes a lot of really fascinating speculative fiction. So this collection of short stories is all focused on different kind of sci-fi fantasy ideas, exploring a what if, exploring a question of if the world changed, or we developed some technology, or it had been different in some way, how would that affect humanity? How would we be different? How would we react? And I love the way that he's able to craft these stories. I actually have a standalone kind of review discussion of this collection, so I'll link that below if you want to hear more, but I really, really highly recommend this. It's just truly, truly amazing writing, the way that he's able to do so much world building and create such a cohesive story in such a short amount of space. So these are excellent. And if you have seen the movie Arrival by Amy Adams, that's based on one of these short stories. So I really recommend you check it out. Next, I'd like to recommend Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Ishiguro is Japanese-British and writes really atmospheric literary fiction. So this book is literary fiction with maybe a hint of science fiction, and it has so much beauty in the writing and in the characters and just really in the atmosphere. I think the atmosphere is what makes this book so special, and I love atmospheric stories. The story itself follows three friends who grow up in a boarding school where there is something going on, there's something mysterious, and it follows them through to adulthood and sort of the consequences of that mystery. I thought that this was just so gorgeous. I loved the writing and I loved the story, and I loved the kind of exploration of the relationships between the friends as well as sort of the consequences of this mystery. I highly recommend it. Also, I have heard that there is a movie adaptation, although I haven't watched it, but it might be good. And lastly, I'd like to recommend The Prince and the Dressmaker by Wong. This is a middle grade graphic novel that is just so, so sweet. It's about a prince who loves to wear dresses, but is not necessarily sure that that would be okay to tell his family or his subjects about, and the dressmaker that he befriends who makes him these sort of haute couture, beautiful gowns. And I love that the story focuses on kind of queerness, on accepting yourself, on coming out, on also just the beauty of dresses. This book focuses so much on the dresses and on the fashion, on the just so much gorgeous artwork. I loved the artwork in this. It's both sweet and beautiful. It's got excellent colors. I just adored this, and I think it's great for all ages, definitely for kids, but also adults. I mean, I loved this book. It's so great and you should check it out. So now moving on to my TBR for May. So each month for my TBR, I pick 7 different books that I'd like to prioritize. So these are not necessarily books where I'm going to read all of them, but I'd like to try to read at least 5 of these. And I may pick up other books throughout the month that strike my interest by Asian American or Pacific Islander authors. Luckily this month, the Asian Readathon prompts actually aligned pretty well with the books that I wanted to read, so I fit them within those. One of the neat things about the Asian Readathon for these prompts is that they ask that you choose a book from a different ethnicity for each of the prompts. So if you choose like a Japanese heritage for one prompt, then you choose like Chinese or Korean or Singaporean or something else for other prompts. So each one should be a different ethnicity. So I have done that for each of the categories, for each of the prompts, although there are some repeats because often I have more than one book per prompt. So the first prompt is to read any book by an Asian author. I've chosen 2 books for this. The first is The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. As I mentioned before, Ishiguro is Japanese-British, and since I loved Never Let Me Go, I really have been wanting to read Remains of the Day. So this is set, I believe, in the 1950s and focuses on a butler and is, again, literary fiction. I don't know too much about it, and I don't want to, because I just know that Ishiguro's writing and his atmosphere and his characters are what are going to make this story fantastic. Next is Death by Dumpling by Vivian Qian. Vivian Qian is American, maybe mixed race, maybe Chinese. It was a little hard for me to find out, but the character in her book is Chinese American. This book is actually a cozy mystery, and despite my deep conviction that I love cozy mysteries, I've never actually read one. So this is going to be my first cozy mystery. I have watched all of the Poirot TV show and I loved that series so much, which is I think why I think I'm gonna like cozy mysteries, but this is actually gonna be my first attempt to read one. So I'm really hoping that I like it. The plot of this is that there is a Chinese American woman who ends up moving back to kind of her hometown to help her parents out with their restaurant. But somebody dies from the shrimp in a dumpling and they come under a lot of suspicion for that, and she has to kind of clear their name. So I think this should be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to read a cozy mystery. Now for prompt 2, read a book featuring an Asian character or written by an Asian author who you can relate to. And for this, I've chosen 2 books as well. So first is Sorcerer to the Crown by Zen Cho. Zen Cho is Malaysian, and this book is a historical fantasy set in Regency England with a lot of magic, which is why I think I'm gonna really relate to this. I love Regency books. I love Regency books so much, and I love fantasy so much. And this combination of Regency, England, and fantasy, I think is going to really speak to me. I recently read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which was so fantastic, and the same idea, Regency, England, and fantasy. So I think that this book is really going to be something that I can relate to a lot. Also, it just sounds like it addresses a lot of issues I care about, things about race and class and colonialism, so I'm very excited to read this. Next is They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. George Takei is Japanese American, and this is a nonfiction graphic memoir about the internment camps for Japanese Americans during World War II. I think that this is going to be such a powerful read, and I think that this is something that I'm going to relate to just because I have so much experience with living in Japan and also with living in the US, and there is this sense of responsibility for a lot of the decisions that have been made by the US that have affected a lot of different marginalized groups. So I feel a lot of kind of connection to this story, and I definitely want to read it. Now on to prompt 3, which is to read a book featuring an Asian character or written by an Asian author who is different from you. And for this, I've also chosen 2 books. First is The Red Threads of Fortune by J.Y. Yang. J.Y. Yang is Singaporean, non-binary, and queer, all of which are very different from me, so I really am interested in hearing more of their writing. I read last year the first book in this series, The Black Tides of Heaven, so I really want to continue on with the Tensert series and read the other novellas. So this is making progress if I can read this book. It is a silk punk fantasy, so sort of a combination of Asian magic and mythology, as well as a lot of, more modern technologies, things like guns and atomic warfare. I really enjoyed all of that world building that was in the first book, so I'm excited to see where it goes here in the second book. This follows a pair of twins whose mother is kind of the leader of a very colonial type empire, and they face a lot of difficulties in terms of kind of rebellion against that empire versus siding with the empire. So I'm interested in reading this and see how it goes. Next is The Best We Could Do by Thi Bui. Bui is Vietnamese American, and this is a nonfiction graphic memoir about Bui's family being refugees from Vietnam to the US. Definitely, I don't have very much experience with Vietnam or with refugees, and so this is a topic that I'm very interested in learning more about. Especially, I love graphic memoirs, so I'm really looking forward to this one. And lastly, prompt 4 is to read a book recommended by an Asian, which I'm going to combine with the optional 5th prompt to read the group book. So, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, who is Hong Kongese American, is both the group book and a book that I've had recommended. So Jade at Bedtime Bookworm, again, who I will link below, read Little Fires Everywhere a year or 2 ago and definitely highly recommended it. So I've been intending to pick this up. So I think this is the perfect time since it's also the group book. This is a story about kind of a picture perfect suburb where a single mom moves in and kind of rents maybe a sub house from somebody. And it sounds like there's a lot of underlying drama that kind of unfolds in this little suburb. So this is something where I will try to read it, but the holds wait on my library ebook copy is quite long, so we'll see if I get this in May, but I will definitely try to read this. Okay, so that is my priority for May. I definitely hope that you check out the booktubers that I mentioned if you haven't already. If you have read any of the books that I've mentioned, or you have any thoughts on them, or if you have any recommendations for me of books or of booktubers, I would love to hear them. So please definitely leave me a comment down below.